Now, verse 7 is the verse that Taylor spoke about earlier. It shall come to pass that I, Lord God, will send one mighty and strong, holding the scepter of power in his hand, clothed with light for a covering. Why will this person be sent? This one mighty and strong will only be sent if Edward Partridge doesn't fix his struggle in independence. Well, the fact is Edward did fix his struggle, so the conclusion doesn't need to happen. The consequence in that if-then doesn't need to become a reality. There have been people in the history of our church who have set themselves up as the fulfillment of verse 7, trying to call people to themselves, saying, I am the one mighty and strong. Come, I will now lead you as a fulfillment of this prophecy. That just strikes me as really odd because of what comes in verse 8, right after it. You'll notice, while that man who is called of God and appointed, that putteth forth his hand to steady the ark of God, shall fall by the shaft of death. He's referring to that story out of 2 Samuel 6 and 1 Chronicles 13, where it describes David, who is now moving the Ark of the Covenant that contains the 2 tablets of stones with the 10 Commandments written by the finger of God, as well as Aaron's rod and a pot of manna. This most sacred artifact of the ancient Israelites. David has it on an ox cart, and they're now moving it. He's going to be taking it to his house in the city of David in Jerusalem, and along the way, the ox cart starts to tip, and what happens to Uzzah?
Uzzah's like, I'm going to help, and he just puts his hand out to steady the ark. And, he's thinking, I can do God's work. I can do it for him without being asked to do it. I'm just going to go jump in and do God's work for himself. But God had actually already made it pretty clear, like, this ark is mine. My presence is here, and I own it, and there's only a few people that I have ordained to actually touch this. And Uzzah wasn't one of them. It was outside of the orders, outside of his obligation. And
this story doesn't end well, and it's for 21st century sensitivities, that story it's not usually people's favorite story, because it's a God of justice and a feeling of wrath, teaching a lesson. And perhaps we don't have the full story and all of the background information, but the principle is clear. When God authorizes servants to do something, he doesn't want other people that aren't authorized to come in and say, no, I can do it better, which is what some people ironically have done with verse 7, saying, I'm not authorized by God, but I'm going to step forward and I'm going to be the one, the mighty and great one and the strong one to fulfill this promise in section 85, which to me, I would say to any of those individuals in history or currently who have that feeling of, I'm going to be that guy.
Or the future.
I'd say keep reading. Read one more verse, because God has an order with which he does these things. And we sustain our first presidency in our quorum of the 12 apostles as prophets, seers, and revelators. And the president of the church as the only person on the earth who is authorized to exercise all priesthood keys. There's an order to that I don't need to wonder if I should go to Google, because I don't think the Bible tells me, surely the Lord God will do nothing except he revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the bloggers, the Facebookers, the YouTubers. He didn't say that. His order, his authorized channel is through the prophets. And unfortunately, in our world today, it's that there are so many competing voices stepping up, trying to say in one form or another, look at me, I've got these answers, and I've got some things figured out that the prophets and apostles haven't yet taught us about. That's a red flag of warning.